Okay, so it's like this. No cash bail means some judges could feel a little restricted because they would feel better if there was a cash bail. Only some, not all. There was a cash bail because they want to release somebody. Actually, you might actually get additionally release people because they'll feel like this guy's on the border or gal's on the border of, flight risk. But if I order bail, they'll probably not run. Right. So you might actually end up with more people. Right. Well, because theoretically, again, what you're complaining about actually is, quote unquote, the liberal judge. Theoretically, there's not much of an effect of all that. Right. But what you're complaining about is the liberal judge. You're not complaining about cashless bail. You might have some judges that want to impose bail because they could actually release somebody they normally wouldn't release without bail because they don't want to have somebody absconding and that they release because it looks bad. Right, so I think cashless bail is a catch-22. Right. What they're doing is what cashless bail does is restrict some judge that's a jerk. Right. That's all it does. Some judges, might just throw this big amount at somebody they don't like and and they can't get out. Right. I don't think it does anything else, really. Well, the judge can still order them on their own recognizances, so they don't even have to charge 1 penny. But to be jerks, they might do something like that. Give us $10 and we'll let you out. This is how you monitor that. This is the only way to fix what you think is broke. I don't know if it is or not. I heard the statistics say that people that are on bail generally do not reoffend. It's a few people here or there. Well, again, cashless bail doesn't mean that somebody gets released that's dangerous. Your problem is that somebody that was dangerous got released. What you're thinking is that cashless bail means no detention. It doesn't mean that. So the way to do it is you look at a judge's history of release. How many abscond? You look at the average. You can't just willy-nilly. Oh, you had somebody abscond. We're going to impeach you. You can't do that. But you look at the average of judges. What's normal for the number of people that abscond, the number of crimes committed on bail. Like if a judge has 15 cases where he says or she says this guy or this gal is not danger and they reoffend while they're on bail, obviously the judgment might be skewed. But what is it average across the board? Once you decide what the average is, then anybody that's below average, causing where people that they let go engage in additional crimes or they run flight risk, then you can impeach that judge. Right. But that's the only way to do it, really. To do what you think you're doing by removing cashless bail. So again, whatever the truth is, and if you do it that way, then the truth will prevail because you can't, you're not going to be able to impeach somebody just because they have one absconding or one committing a crime, because it's not a perfect system. These are all criminals. Somebody might look okay. You've released 50 people with the same kind of rap sheet, and the next thing you know, the one commits a crime. Yeah, we have some, but again, how big is the nation? How many arrests are in a day? Right. And cashless bail is not going to fix that, or taking away cashless bail is not going to fix that, because there's no standard. Like what are you thinking that if you commit a certain type of crime that your bail is some fixed amount? No, it's not. Right. Well, the judge, whether it's cashless bail or not, the judge is generally going to release the same person. But what they might do is somebody that they wouldn't release because they're afraid of flight risk, they might say, okay, put your house up and we'll release you. So you might actually get additional people released that they normally wouldn't release, especially on flight risk. not necessarily on dangerousness. Right. There's two things: flight risk and dangerousness to the community. Well, like I said, your problem is with liberal judges, not with cashless bail. So-called. I don't know if that problem actually exists. Like, you're watching RBM, and they'll tell you all sorts of shit, even though it was my idea for such a thing to exist. Maybe if I managed it, we'd have some really nice people that tell the truth, and the president doesn't get confused. Right. Thank you, Larry. No, you might actually get more people on bail, actually. or released. Because now the judge has an opportunity to fashion, maybe like somebody signs their house over. Because if you can't force them to sign their house over, and you're worried about them running, then you're not going to. Well, if somebody doesn't have money, it's only limited. The only thing you're going to do, the only thing that does is if a judge is a jerk and is going to like order some poor person to pay because they just want to put the screws to them. Some judges, it won't make a difference at all. Well, although, like I said, they might release somebody that's borderline. Now they can say, sign your house, or have your mother. Another thing is have your mother sign your house, because people don't want to screw their mother over. Your mother will be destitute without a house. Right. Thank you, Larry. Your cashless bail only limited. But again, there are judges that are jerks, and it has limited effect. Because if you're still considering risk, it could actually cause more people to be detained. Like I said, because if you believe somebody might run, if I'm a judge, and I know judges think, I'll say, well, if I can't impose a bail or, something that will hold this person here, then I can't release them. But now I can say, have your mother put her house up. Right. Thank you, Larry. Because it's still, I don't know if it actually helps. I don't know what it looks like. I mean, I haven't looked at the changes in the system. But a lot of judges, risk of flight becomes more riskier if you can't impose some sort of condition such as bail. Right. And you have to understand, the big bail that matters is like your mother's house, your sister's vacation home. Because that's the way they do it. Because if they run, they screw their whole family. Right. Again, if risk of flight is risk of flight and dangerous, they're not going to say, if it's dangerous to the community, they're not going to say, oh, you give me money because you're in danger. It doesn't make any sense. There's no bail that balances dangerousness to the community. Your problem is with a judge that made a bad decision, or maybe it was just something out of left field. It doesn't always mean the judge made a bad decision, because the judge lets 15 people go in the last 6 months and they never caused any trouble. Let's say last year, that similar case, and all of a sudden they go crazy and kill somebody. People go crazy and kill people every day, and they're not on bail. So again, is that really a factor? Correct. It's like, I tell you, FBI psychology is bullshit. It's like smoke and mirrors, just so they can manipulate everybody's life up or down. They're deep state, so it's like bullshit. It's deep state psychology. That's what it is. I said that. More what I did. There it is. It sucks. I have a little tail fin on those clay oil lamps, and when I flip it over, sometimes it gets stuck to the cardboard, so I have to repaint the other side a little bit and fill in that little divot, and then paint it with clear again. I knew what I should have done. Instead of resting it on the fin, I should rest it on the body, but I have to lay it a certain way, and I didn't do it. With the fin just kind of dangling in the air. Just kind of was, because all that weight on one point. It's not a lot of weight, but it's enough to cause that piece of paint to rip off when I lift it. So yeah, I don't. What the president's trying to do, he can't do with that system. He may actually cause more people to be released, which I know isn't his intention. Because now they can impose bail. Before they couldn't. Sometimes judges won't release somebody because they're like, this guy might run, but if I can, if I can force them to give up a house or a couple houses for bail, for bond, then I can assure that person will show up because you don't want to screw his mother, his aunt, whatever it is. Right. Like what was his name? Fat Milton. What was that guy's name from like Malaysia, the Navy case? I forget his name. Fat Berlin. I don't remember his name. Well, he didn't give a shit. He had like stuff up for collateral. Right. Right. No, there's nobody there to tell the president the truth. Fat Leonard, that's it. And Fat Leonard had stuff up for. He had a lot of collateral up. He didn't give a shit. He ran. Right. Agreed. So again, it's really limited. What the president wants to do is something that hasn't been done. And that's that the Justice Department, and again, don't just go after Boasberg or somebody. Boasberg was on that surveillance court. That's why he's ruling the way he probably is. Right. Because there's a lot of CIA-related surveillance court stuff that we don't see. Right. At least I think there is. I don't have present knowledge of that, but the inside does. So yeah, don't you again. This is going to bite you in the ass. This targeting certain people. Well, the way you do it's way different than when anybody else has done it. You have, you're just really again. People target people. I've been targeted every administration by people, in the Justice Department, in DHS, right? Corruptly done so, but they don't talk about it. I mean, they did, but it's not like in the news. Because there's excited utterances and all sorts of stuff around what they've done to me that should have landed them fired at a minimum. Some were fired, but should land them in prison. Right. So Fat Leonard was given a lot of stuff. Navy bribery case. He put up a lot of collateral, probably, if I remember correctly. Right. And he ran. So again, what you're trying to do is trying to hold judges accountable for the decisions of release. That's what you're looking to do. But again, don't get this idea that you're just going to go after Boasberg because that'll get you in trouble. Again, you have to develop the standard. What is the margin of error of the average margin of error for judges? You release them, they run. You release them, they offend again while on release. They were obviously a danger to the community and a risk of flight to some degree. Right. So you come up with that average, and then you have to know, like you can't just say. Because you might have a busy judge that has, a higher number than a judge that only sits once in a while, right? So you have to come up with what the standard of per this many decisions, right? So you have to come up with, I don't know. I guess the way to do it would be 10% margin of error, which probably is not true, but let's say 5% margin of error per 100 decisions or per 50 decisions, bail decisions. So once you come up with that, you can, if you have somebody that's really grossly releasing people and they're absconding and they're harming, which you're probably not going to find. Like they told you, the statistics really don't support what you're all saying. Well, it's because how many people are on freaking bond? Or on bail, or even without bail, just cashless release and bond release. I mean, it's a gazillion. I mean, it's a huge number. Right. So you're going to get, out of all those Americans, you're going to get a certain number of crimes. And they sensationalize that. I mean, it's pretty shitty that it happens, but they sensationalize that. So you think that that's, well, if you take the number of people, you'll probably, here's an example, and it's definitely true. Take the number of people that, again, come up with per, like, 1,000 people. Look at 1,000 people that commit violent crimes, just everyday people that aren't on a release. What's that number? Then find 1,000 people that aren't on release. It's probably the same, or maybe even better. Right. So again, statistics will tell you that somebody on pretrial release will commit a violent crime because people commit violent crimes every day that aren't on pretrial release. Right. Especially if you have a criminal history. So then you have to look at the criminal history. And again, that's what the judge is supposed to be looking at also. Thank you, Larry. So that's the way to do it. And then again, it's a sticky situation, but you could try to impeach the judge. Correct. And judges would agree with you at that point. If you find some egregious offender that's, everybody they release either runs or beats somebody up on their own bail, or, kills their wife or whatever it is. But I don't think you're going to find that. So again, that's probably the study you should have did before you decided this. Well, because I in my mind, if you're a liberal, cashless bail is only as good as the judge is. It doesn't really do what they think it does. It actually may cause somebody not to be released. Well, essentially, the standard for federal court is, and those are federal courts, and that is, if you cannot prove, again, this just happened in the Abrego Garcia case. If you cannot prove dangerousness to the community, if you cannot prove, what's the other one? Risk of flight, then you have to release them. They have to be released. It's pretty much the way it is. Because there's no reason to hold them. The system is built to release people. So again, I don't know if you're mad at Abrego Garcia's bail or no bail or whatever it was. But, I think you're confused as to how it all works. We agree. And again, if that's what you're doing, then that's like is everything a vengeance? Is that how you operate government? I mean, you're creating that pattern, pattern of behavior, that, pattern in practice. Right. Big Balls gets beat up and you call out the National Guard and spend billions of dollars, or at least millions of dollars. Right. So again, it's not showing well, because eventually it's going to hit the court system, and there's going to be the judge is limited. Again, it could hit the next presidency, and you can be charged with pattern and practice. Again, not charged with, but that creates the specter of charges that are applicable. Because it's not like, oops, stop. Right. Or, we say, no way, they're political, we're not. I mean, it doesn't show well. I mean, the idea that the Trump administration isn't political really isn't there. Right. Thanks, sir. Again, the system's built the way it's built. And again, if you were bipartisan, you could change the system. Do you understand that? If you would have been bipartisan, well, if they're not bipartisan, it doesn't mean like okay, so Trump and what's his name, Biden were not bipartisan. It doesn't mean that, and I don't know, Harris could have been pulling everybody's leg, but it doesn't mean Harris has to be, or weren't bipartisan. It doesn't mean Harris has to be the same way. She could be bipartisan. Right. It only takes one person to start it. Well, if you're not bipartisan, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to do your little shit, but you're not going to be anything major. Right. Well, you need several things done. You need a bigger budget in D.C., and then you'll be able to finish the operation and give them, maybe 100 extra cops or whatever it is. 100 new cops, some bullet-resistant vehicles. It doesn't have to be an armored car. You can make all their cars bullet-resistant. That adds to bravery, believe me. I was working on bullet-resistant vehicles, but the cops went dirty and effed me off, and I couldn't get back to it. I got it to the point, and there's no doubt that it's me, because as soon as I stopped, everything stopped. But I got to the point where you got those things in the doors, the ballistic panels in the doors, and then I wanted all glass. I want bullet-resistant glass in all law enforcement vehicles, but they killed me because dirty piece of shit cops took dirty piece of shit money. Oh yeah, the FOP wanted me to say something more. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, yeah, I was going to post it. I got busy. Well, the FOP is not happy, but they can't say anything because they'll lose their positions and jobs. You really do need to credit the police departments that you're helping, augmenting, assisting. Say this is a very difficult job. We understand that. We understand you're under budgeted, understaffed, under equipmented. Right. But we're here to help you, and together we're going to do this. That's all you need to say. Now, Donald Trump, please. No, not Donald Trump's not doing it. It's those police officers. Right. We pretty much did a good job in fixing that federal-state animosity or state and local animosity. I mean, you're all bringing it back. Yeah, and there's federal officers that are pissed off, not just the FOP. We spent years trying to undo that rivalry. Right. I'm the one inside that's doing all the work. You all just pieces of shit taking money, being dirty. Look, the officers inside tell me it all. There's a portion of every police department that's dirty. They're not going to tell me, walk up to my face and tell me it. Right. So you're starting this thing that's going to cause, bad feelings between federal, state, and local. Cincinnati's weird because, okay, so now the CIA, everybody bashed Cincinnati. Why? Everybody's going to get something from it. Any major city in the world, somebody walks down the street in every major city in the world, Republican, Democrat, or otherwise. Somebody walks down the street, pulls their pants down, and craps. In almost every city, almost every day. Every city, but almost every day. Ask cops. This is stupid. So the guy in Cincinnati is like, oh, I've had it. They're crapping in the street. The CEO is moving his company out of Cincinnati because somebody crapped in the street. We got women that aren't even that's probably like some homeless addict or something, right? But we got women that were jogging, and when they're jogging, they get on and they crap somewhere. We've all had that. If you can't get to the woods, then you can't do it. You got to cramp out for a while until you get somewhere. Take your phone with you if you're going to run. That way you can call an Uber. Take me to the nearest bathroom. Right. I remember going to some of the nastiest McDonald's in the world. Have to take, when you're out exercising or something. Right. That's about the bottom. That used to be. Maybe it's clean now, but that used to be the bottom level bathroom, McDonald's. Right. But the FOP wanted me to speak, and I was going to post it. I guess I didn't. Right. Well, you're talking shit about police officers, and they support you. You recovered a couple times, but it keeps coming out. Well, it's a difficult job, and they do a great job. You're federal officers, and again, this is something that a lot of federal officers realize, that they cannot control that city without the police department. If the police department stood down, it'd be way worse than it is with them up and the feds gone. Right. And again, then you're moving National Guard in. Like, what? You're trying to compare apples and oranges. That's the point. Right. I mean, National Guard with bullet-resistant vehicles at this point. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna have to credit the police officers a little bit more, because come election day they can vote against you. They won't say anything; they'll just do it. Right. Thanks, sir. Well, the FOP can't tell you that, because you'll, just like that U.S. attorney, you'll fire them. Right. Well, that's not a way to run anything, to tell you the truth. I'm somebody who's run quite a few things up, inside and out. I'm somebody and out. I don't know if what is it, Gaza Health something or humanitarian something. I don't know if they're expanding, because I don't have any inside, coming in. It's right. They're obviously doing my program, or something like my program. Well, we need to have, like, so I think what I'm seeing is that they have standard service points and then additional mobile service points that they try to put up when they can. But I'm not sure. Well, based upon the map, and again, the map, we don't know how long each point was up. Well, we want zones, is what we want. We want zones. You want people relegated to zones. We want to feed them in their respective zones. Right. Right. And we want people with IDs. Thanks, Larry. Well, that's what the we got the other officers, the CA and the security officers. So you got, essentially you're putting together like at least an A team with a civil affairs guy in charge. Blackwater would do it, but they won't let him in. With that crook boss they got. Well, again, what you're trying to do is create some normalcy. And again, GHF has created more normalcy than anyone else, but it needs to be larger. And we need to, I don't think we're utilizing real estate because we just don't have staff to staff it, right? Because a lot of real estate in the Gaza that we can use. When they're gravitating towards the south, and that's understandable. But I think there's some area in the north, maybe GHF has moved in there. I don't know, or someone else. Right. Again, corrections, they say, is it's like a little city. You got education, you got the police department, you got right, you got all the little stuff. But civil affairs, that's what they're doing. They're creating that that return to civic civil structure. So again, the things they do where you have different units, you feed at different times. I mean, yeah, that's one of the things too. You could, but it's not going to work for them as well as. But they got, actually, maybe they did go to that. They went to pickup. So pickup, you can tell them what time to be there, I guess. Right. Now you can use correctional science to kind of work some of it. Right. But civil affairs people are different than your average officer. Agreed. Or your team member. because they have other things in their mind. Like I'm a civil affairs type of guy. I've never been officially trained in it, but because I show you the other considerations, the psychological, the psychosocial considerations that we need to consider so we can get things, so things will go easier, quote unquote. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're still trying to kill Gazans. I don't know. I mean, somebody, in other words, I understand it's not what the other side says, but it's not what Netanyahu says either. It's somewhere in the middle. Right. Thank you there. So I think we still have people that are starving. I don't think we're without people that are starving. Just because the opposite of people starving isn't that Hamas lies or something like that. Right. Right. So I know how Mossad would work, and I know how IDF civil, psychological guys and gals would handle it. I mean, you just make the other point, discredit the point. But it doesn't mean that people aren't starving. And if we can feed the people, and see, Hashem, the problem is the Torah always wins because you're still stuck in something. You don't understand that. Think because you're killing people, other people, that you're okay. Like even the beginning of it was unnecessary. If you live by the Torah, and I don't mean, don't commit adultery. I mean, you don't want to do that. But there's some other stuff that, there's different things in the scriptures, how you treat other people. And again, some would say if you're having adultery with a woman and you have that power over her, or man, and you have that power over, then you are harming another person. Right? Again, and then you have your wife or their husband or whatever it is, or their husband and wife, your wife, whatever it is. Right. But when you look at how you're supposed to treat certain, again, there's a pecking order. The Palestinians are poor, less educated than Jews in Israel. So why do you want to make this argument that they're the deciding factor? You're making billions of dollars. You could have had peace with all the money you make in Israel and in Jewish businesses aligned with Israel and Jewish people that are aligned with Israel. Right? There's no way that you couldn't bring peace. It's easier to bring peace than it is to make that money. I'll tell you that right now. All those years could have been peaceful. And I told you right from they thought they were going to crash this and I wasn't going to notice it. I saw the error report. Bumped me offline. So we had Condoleezza Rice, we had Bush, we had Cheney. So conservatives were running a peace plan. Now, as far as the two-state solution, it may be the perfect solution, but you can't get to a two-state solution until the Palestinians meet certain benchmarks and show that they accept Israel. Because it's no better to not accept Israel as an independent state than it is as part of Israel. Because then you just be another country that we got a war, which is really what it was anyway. Right. Well, I don't know why you didn't go into Gaza to begin with. I wasn't anybody that told you that you should pull out of Gaza or pull out of the West Bank and not rule. Right. But I was telling you, when you do that, you also have to rule the settlers. Right. So my favorite was not a two-state solution exactly, but an oversight type of two-state solution, right? Where they have like a state government, not a state government. It's pretty funny because in the United States it doesn't really translate. Our state, like federal, like Israel's the federal government and Palestine is the state government. I don't agree with the form of governments in Israel anyway. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. I don't think it represents the people as well as it could. I think that's one of your problems. I think there's too much power of faction. Factions can take over, and did, I think. I think that's the Federalist Papers 10. Number 10, Federalist Paper number 10. See, that's what Trump's trying. That's what frustrates Trump. He wants to be a faction in charge, and he's like he's running into the constitutional government roadblocks, right? So what does he do? He just they all pontificate. Rogue judges, politics, activists. But it only works so far because you're political and you're activists. A different type, but you are. So again, when you get to the people are like, but everything's going up in cost. You made money, we're not making it. Right. So then they'll reject everything you say. You're no longer the good guy like you were when they elected you. Now you're the Biden. Next thing you know, they'll be talking about the auto pen. The Trump auto pen. I guess the Trump auto pen is like, what's wrong with his hands? What's going on with his hands? It looks like to me he's getting IVs, actually. I don't know if you all figured that out. Right. That could be a lot of reasons. Right. Voluntary and non-voluntary, like medical necessity and voluntary. Right. Maybe flood them with growth hormone. I don't know. Right. Keep them alive. Thanks, Larry. Could be insulin. Could be anything. Right. Could be IVs because he's dehydrating. Because he did look like he dehydrated before, I think, a long time ago. But right. Could be IVs just because he keeps dehydrating or something. I don't know. Right. But there could be something in the IV that's medicinal. Or maybe he needs transfusions or dialysis. I don't know. Right. Or something like that. What should I read? So again, the FOP would hope that you credit law enforcement and just say that the system is just overwhelmed and what they are given in resources is not well enough or large enough to do what they need to do, and we're here to help them finish the job. That's all. We're here to change the world. Because the simple fact is, if DC Metro stood down, the city would just crumble completely. Right. The feds couldn't maintain control. Would want to, but couldn't. Right. And that's true about every police department, just about, if not every. Right. I mean, of course, a small town maybe, but every city needs that police department. Right. There are liberal judges that do screw up, but it's not at the point like RBN. Like you're believing your own propaganda, or maybe you don't know it's propaganda. Like RBN will play it up because it's a conservative talking point, but the number of people that are actually committing crimes while on bond is small, and the idea about cashless or not cashless doesn't really go to that aspect. Well, because what do you think? Somebody again, they don't always order bail. If somebody's going to wig out and kill somebody, whether they pay money or not, it's probably not going to change their mind. Right. Well, because it's an additional charge. They have no capability of having that deterrence factor make a difference. Right. So usually it's like if it's a rape and a murder, usually a person's just sick. Right. But a judge doesn't always know that. But a judge could be an overly liberal judge, and right. Thank you, Larry. But that's a different system. The only way to do that is through an impeachment, right? Or I guess you could make a complaint I don't know if you can do that. I have to look if there's because the administrative office of the courts. I don't know if they have sanctions or something where. Is there a complaint system to the administrative office of the court? I don't know if they could actually say anything about judges. Okay, there's a judicial conduct and disability process. All right, let me see what this is. The judicial conduct and disability process allows the public and legal professionals to file complaints against federal judges who may have engaged in misconduct or a debilitating disability. The process involves a formal investigation under the Judicial Conduct and Disability Act, where the Judicial Conference oversees the investigation. Okay, that's where you go. So this is the Judicial Conduct and Disability process. So that's what you're talking about, actually. But you have to find the issue, and it isn't, oh, this somebody that this judge released became violent. Because again, it's probably a very small number compared to the number of people that are on release. You would have to establish a pattern of practice of releasing dangerous or absconding individuals before you could file a complaint. Establish a practice. And then there's one more here. Or some overwhelmingly obvious danger to the community. That was overlooked or ignored. Or I said right. Ignored. You might find in some of this, because I'm receiving that sometimes it's not the judge, it's the person that does the pretrial report, which means the judge relies on investigators in the pretrial services to do a report. And if there's something that was there that the judge doesn't see, the judge might release the individual, and then later you find out all this issue that the judge didn't know about. And they say, how could the judge have released that person? Well, it wasn't in the report. The judge doesn't do the investigation. The judge simply reads the investigation and says yay or nay, listening to the arguments of the government and the defense. So again, sometimes the government will say, hey, they missed something, but it doesn't mean the government knows it either. Right? Actually, I forgot to put the other thing. Well, because generally, if there's no obvious reason why the person should have been detained, and they commit some crime, you can't ding the judge for it. A lot of people are laughing because Trump, he was released from everything and no questions asked. And he actually broke the conditions of release on numerous occasions. So it's kind of weird that he does this. Right. So the Justice Department could file under that. I thought it was the Administrative Office of the Courts. I don't know if it's related to them or not, but this is right. If it's a staff member, it's the Administrative Office of the Courts. Right. So if the Justice Department wants to make a complaint, they can. But like, I don't think Boasberg is that far off on anything. A couple things, not a couple things, but small things, right? Well, because there is a judicial process, and the appellate process exists and tells you judges will rule a certain way, and there's a process to change it. It doesn't mean that the judge is wrong. It's just the judge is not right enough. Right. Well, we know there's conservative judges, we know there's liberal judges, but the idea is it gets to be a lot for the public when you keep saying activism and say it's the liberal judge, when everybody knows there's conservative judges that are activists, right? Along with liberal judges. Agreed. Well, the public, you have to remember the public. That's the people that, have to vote you back in. They'll lock you out. Please back in, please. Thank you, Larry. Well, we don't live in a world where people speak out. That's obvious. I'm one of the very few that do. Right. No, because I'm your friend. I speak out so you won't go to hell, right? But again, you all prefer to go to hell. Yes. Thanks, Larry. What I'm getting at, don't abuse that process, because then they'll just shut your investigations. Like they'll just sign off and go bullshit. So don't use a process for political gripes. Right. Just like filing frivolous lawsuits. Don't frivolously, do some bullshit. But that's where you want to go. If you're having problems with people being released on bail or something like that. Right. But I mean, it has to be, you have to find the truth. Right. So see, the system, like casus bail is not the thing. That's the thing. That if somebody's released and there's some sort of crime committed by the individual, is it just a one-off thing for that judge, which happens? Every judge has probably at least one case like that. Right. But, or is it a pattern in practice? Then if you find a pattern of releasing people that should be detained, then you can file the complaint under that. But if you use it for political purpose, they're going to shut you down. And they're not even going to look at your stuff. Like a frivolous lawsuit. So don't do things you're already doing things frivolously, all of you. The whole Abrego Garcia thing is frivolous. Considering who we actually lock up and who we let go and who we just deport. All you do is pull him back in and deport him somewhere else. It's that simple. Right. The question is whether you can deport anybody to CCOT, or do they find that to be, cruel and unusual? Because you don't even have like a sentencing order from a judge to say, okay, lock them up and you send them to, which I don't think you can, but it's just right. You're just saying, hey, I'm reporting them somewhere where they get locked up in this terrorist jail. Right. Well, the funny part is, in Trump's world, Trump would have been thrown in jail and not let out. If Trump was sentencing himself, or Trump's standard of release and all of that. Right. Trump violated the conditions of release on multiple occasions. Right. Any other defendant would have been locked right back up and not let out. But they didn't want to go down that road. Right. Well, because they wanted, They don't have to deal with appeals. They figure the case will, if it went to trial, it would have been convicted, and that would be it. Now, as far as Trump getting anything besides home detention, I don't think. Because it's just it's like doesn't make sense, right? Unless they confine him to like his room at Mar-a-Lago, which would be kind of weird, right? So they would probably tell him just to rent some place. That's what you would do, right? And the Secret Service would be available, and right? But like he'd have to stay there except for certain purposeful visits. Like you could go to a lawyer, you can go to the doctor, right? And it wouldn't be an extended period of time. I doubt it would be an extended. Right. They may have given him probation. That's the other option. Based upon his age. They may have just said, well, probation, don't do it again. Right. No, you have to understand. You may not agree with the case, but it meets the requirements of the case. Right. Probable cause, reasonable suspicion. Now, if you believe there was prosecutorial misconduct, maybe, but I don't think so. I mean, in fact, in the Brago Garcia case, the judge has already articulated something that would allow a what do they call it, a prosecutorial misconduct complaint. So it is what it is. We agree, Larry. But again, I think you're being set up. I think eventually they're going to file these things. They're just letting you just go further and further, make more statements, and do additional acts. And they might do it like right before midterms, or 6 months before midterms. And then you have to fight all that while you're trying to get real. See, again, you don't want that kind of shit because they can time when they do it to you. And when you're trying to get reelected or get your, keep the House and the Senate, then they hit you with all this bullshit like, probably 8 months, probably be more realistic. Right. It's going to stretch out for like 2 years or I guess a year and a half or so at least, but maybe 2 years. So if they make you a lame duck, and then you have all this shit coming down. See, that's why bipartisan is the most important part of the whole process. And they want to make you get. In other words, again the first administration. I explained sin for a season. Right. I said that with the gangs and everything else. That was like that. I agree, Larry. I agree, sir. Well, it was sin for a season, and then you spent 4 years as trying to dig yourself out of a hole, and you did. But again, it cost. I mean, I don't think anybody has spent more money digging out a hole than you did. His president did, but he did it with billionaires at his side, right? And what are they actually saying? You can't arrest billionaires. Foo you. So it wasn't anything else. It wasn't like you're really innocent. I mean, Bezos was even like that. Now Bezos wonder if it was worth it, right? That was it. God bless you, Larry. So again, I don't think Trump is going to have that problem, but I don't know if he's well, and I don't wish him anything other than the best, and maybe leaving the planet is the best. I don't know. If he's going to hell, increasing your hells is not a good thing. But I don't know if he's doing that. He's starting to think about it, so he might change. Right? I don't think he's advised right. So if your advisors are Christian preachers and your advisors are ethics. I don't know if he's got too many ethics people around him. But again, if they're leading you in the wrong direction, then how much is his culpability? Again, just because he has money doesn't mean he has the capability to understand beyond a certain point. It's kind of like Nebuchadnezzar's soothsayers. Right. I'm Daniel for Trump. And again, they used a lot of my stuff, but if I was in there close, he wouldn't have made any mistakes. He'd have done 8 years and it would fix the country pretty much. Right. Well, you have to understand how the world works. If you didn't use gangs, you would have been luckier. And that luck may have caused COVID to never happen. Right. So when you have gang warfare ruling the planet at that level, then you get you get bad luck, they get bad luck. Right. And then COVID happens. The planet was down when COVID happened. You were killing me when COVID happened. You all were. Right. I agree. And I got up a little bit. Things leveled off, and then they attacked again, of course. Somebody's paying money all the way through. So you pled guilty. That case is over. El Myers and Myers. Okay. So again, here's an example. You're going Maduro, Maduro, Maduro. If we could have made a deal with that guy 6 years ago, right? I mean, you'd have to, maybe he didn't feel the heat. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But I believe that if you let him keep his money and you make a deal not to prosecute, unless he goes back into drug dealing or something like that. And I don't think it was dealing as much back then as it is today. Right. Again, your process is skewed. That's why you can't beat him. Again, if the system sees you honorable, then it might power you to take him out. But if you're a crook and he's a crook, right? The system is just like, well, it's two crooks. Doesn't see you as the law. You're just playing your game out because he's not one of your drug dealers. Your drug dealer's from another country. Right. Or somebody else exporting cocaine. Yeah, that's good, but it could be. Maduro's muscling in on somebody else's cocaine territory. I mean, they're not honest. There's no doubt. I agree. So again, we don't want to go into Mexico if we don't have to. We want to be able to reach out and touch. That's probably an initially. Again, you can't win a war per se without going in and all that. But I don't think we're at that point yet. We're just at the point of minimizing their capability to bring poison into the United States, which is a little bit different mission. Right. Well, again, initially, you have to watch for collateral damage. So if you're going to use AI like Israel, make sure you put that in there, right, to see what the collateral damage is going to be. Because if you don't put it in there and it says, okay, we got it, and you take out El Macho Man or whatever his name is, you don't, and all of a sudden, you take out, 5, 10 people, and then I can just hear you. Well, they're all criminals in Mexico, just like the Gaza. We actually have a tool now, and Israel had that at their disposal. If you add certain lines of code, that machine will figure out how to take someone out without harming children. It won't be as fast. And again, look how long it took to get here. Why? Because you killed children. Right. So if you tell the AI not to kill children, it'll do everything to your collateral damage will just go. It'll just sink. I mean, sometimes it can't tell. Right. And because they used they analyzed Elon's psychological patterns and threw him into Grok, and all of a sudden Grok went nuts. So if you have something like that, of course it's going to go nuts. Grok was Zig Heil, Zig Heil. Is there code where Grok spells Elon? It's like the lawnmower man. Elon sits there with his thing on his head, and they program Grok. Same number of letters. Oh, I bet you there's some scientific code that Grok spells Elon. E equals MC squared, and then where E equals Elon. Yeah, it was Netanyahu. It was they created the AI with Netanyahu's mind. No, yeah. Not Netanyahu. What's that guy's name? What's that guy's name again? Ben-Gvir. They took Ben-Gvir's name and made a military computer out of it, or his mind. They programmed it with his personality. Pretty much. But actually, for the future of war, we have the capability not to harm civilians. We're on the doorstep of the capability not to harm civilians. Of course, when they're hot, but see, that's the point. If you're using AI, it'll figure it out. And then you could also use AI to come up with ruse, which is where you screwed up. Right. I mean, you had some good ruses after a while, but right. Now you don't have to muscle people. You can just act stupid and wimpy, and then wait for that moment. Right. That's what actually me in the LDS church, Oh, I'm old and sick. This guy will make money and build temples with the money. The evil Oaks, alter ego. Everything's fake. There's no doubt. Right. Now, I don't know how much Oaks knows, but right. It may have been after his time that they developed these things. Right.
China, it's a very important relationship. As you know, we're taking a lot of money in from China because of the tariffs and different things. And It's a very important relationship. We're going to get along good with China. I hear so many.
Yeah, you know what it actually is. You see how orange Trump is? They infuse him with orange. That's why he's got an IV every day of orange. That's how he gets his color. But he's an older man. I mean, he's hitting that age of, starting to end, And he's a larger man. He's not like Biden's a skinny dude. Skinny dudes usually fare better when they get older, as far as living longer, right? You don't see too many heavy people living that long. Right. Right. But he's a billionaire, no doubt. That's why he lives that long. He doesn't understand those things. He just, again, that's the point. Like, Trump is limited in his understanding. Now, God has to judge that. Which means if people tell you you're going to heaven all day, and they're like people that are in churches, you can be very easily deceived. So there that is. You got to get that process going. But I don't know who. Yeah, don't use it. Don't frivolously, because then they'll just shit on it. They'll shit on all your requests. And then you'll be yelling, liberal process, liberal process. So again, that if there is a problem with a judge releasing somebody that's not supposed to be released, then that would be the process that would handle it. But it can't be just willy nilly, right? And even if one judge makes a mistake, every judge has had, most likely in their career, has had somebody they released that did something that that was kind of an embarrassment to the judge, right? Well, because it's not 5 minutes of fame, okay? There's a lot in a day there, or in a lifetime too. And of course, magistrates and then district judges, and right. Thank you, Larry. Right, the judges have take. I mean, look at what's that guy's name? Maga, not Maga Swami. What's the guy's name? What was his name? Or the QAnon shaman. I mean, they took a chance on him, and then he, the judge. I'm sure if what's his name? What's that guy's name? Lambert. If Royce Lambert had to do it over again, he'd slam QAnon shaman. If he ever got him in his court again, he'd slam him for turning on him. He believed the bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Right. So again, there's decisions like that all the time. See, that's one where you favored, but yet the judge probably made the wrong decision when you look at the I wouldn't say recidivism, but he's definitely bullshitted the court. Correct. Sorry. Oh, he gave him. I mean, he was eventually. Was he released first? He was released first, and they gave him a smaller sentence than he normally would have gotten. I remember that. Like, they departed downward or something. So again, that's that. We have to roll in here, get some things done. Let's see what I said to make sure it's funny. You have to establish a pattern and practice releasing dangerous under absconding individuals before you can file a complaint or some obvious danger. Right, that's pretty much it. Well, it may not change the system at all, but actually it may change it where they will release somebody. If a judge isn't allowed to order property or money or something, again, most of your effective packages that a judge looks at and agrees to, where it's on the judges on the fence, involves property of family members like a mother and a sister, right? And they just the judge figures, I want to do their, if they seem like they're somewhat sound, they don't want to do their family member like that, right? Now it's happened in history where the mother put up the property and they absconded. So again, it's not a perfect science either. And again, I don't think Trump could do any better than the judges that are sitting there now, to tell you the truth. Well, because they'll fool him. They'll fool him. These people are professional con artists, man. The lawyer and the defendant. They'll find out what makes you tick, and then they'll craft the argument like that. It's just like psyop, right? So again, I told you to keep that presence online. I recommended that, but you have to just kind of pare it down a little bit and not be so really activist. You're coming off as activists. Right. It's like the Communist Party in Russia, the Soviet Union. I agree there. And again, don't insult state and local cops. It took us a long time to get rid of that animosity back and forth. I don't think it exists like it used to. But again, it could come up again because you're playing up the Fed like they're the creme de la creme. When these, I can't even imagine what it'd be like to be a DC Metro cop. Some districts, pretty good, or precincts, whatever they call it. Other ones, it's got to be a nightmare. Right. And again, there's a lot to it. The smells, the odors, and everything else you got to deal. Like, they don't know that part. If they just watch you on the news, people can be just pretty gross and right, dead bodies, and you're not seeing the dead bodies and all that stuff, right? Right there. So again, it's not easy. And you're making it look like that they have no play, they weren't doing anything, and now it's all you. And I just keep reminding everybody that the DC Metro Police Department was doing some job. But again, they needed help, and you came in and helped them. That's the way you're supposed to say it. And we treasure and value their work, because without it, I don't think we could even begin to do what we're doing. They got our back, we got their back. Right. What's this Benjamin doing here? Obviously, Obrador. I would think, unless the Democrats play a game, he won't spend much time in Uganda. Now, they might require some documentation, but I don't think it'd take long to get him something. I'm sure if the president of France or prime minister, whatever they are there, I guess president, Macron calls them and says, we'll take him, Uganda will say, okay, we'll put him on a plane. right? Or they might send a plane for him, right? Or Spain. Spain could send a plane. Spain's close enough too. I mean, he could go to Canada. He could go anywhere in South Central America. I'm sure there's people. I mean, Brazil would take him, right? Lulu would jump at the chance. So again, I don't. Again, if there's something I don't see, yeah, but I don't unless the Democrats are going to play this game where he's suffering in Uganda. I don't see him staying very long. You're just releasing him to another country, is what you're really doing. You made him, a martyr. See, that's the risk. Well, I think his martyr status outweighs your MS-13 gangbanger label. As far as, yeah, some people buy into it, but I think he did. In other words, the effect of him being a martyr is larger than the other part. He's like Che Guevara at this point. People are going to put him on a shirt. Or it'll just take a little bit more and they'll be putting him on their shirt. Hey, pick your battles, really. Like nobody thought to prosecute him until this happened, and you obviously did make a mistake. The attorney was correct, right? Well, he was not. He still could sue you for deporting him to El Salvador. That's why I told you, get that signature where he won't sue you. Right. That's actually the best case scenario when you reduce it all to, what's the outcome of it? Would be to get his agreement not to sue you, put him some country he wants to go to, Well, you could even go a little political and say, well, it was obvious that the judge was not going to be beneficial to our case, and case histories tell us that if a judge is has an attitude like that judge does, the case isn't going to go anywhere, and he'll probably get released somewhere. All it takes is one juror to cause a hung jury, a mistrial. That judge can cause more than one. I can guarantee it. There's two people you have to watch out for. That's the marshal handling the jury and the judge. Those two people can ruin that case. Right. Right. Agree. Well, but you're doing this stuff and you act like you have all the cards. You don't have all the cards. You piss off a judge, he or she could ruin all your cases. Right. Because they know how to say little things and the jury goes, right. And like a judge will befriend the jury. Oh, hi, jury, thank you. So the jury's like, oh, such a nice judge. Such a nice marshal. Thanks for the lunch, Marshal. And then the judge will just make these offhand remarks. She'll be calling you stupid and useless. And then you lose the case. So it's already started. And again, you may have been held as it may have been thrown out on misconduct. Because she said it already. She was like, I think it's a woman. The judge said, I don't see, where this is. You've not proven that he's MS-13. So if you because you bring that up at trial, then the judge will say, look, I told you. Right. And say you're making allegations that are going to taint the jury, mistrial. Or, can throw out the case. Agreed, Larry. Well, these things are looking good. A little bit orangey, but still that red-orange color. I have to paint this side again and take care of it once this side dries. It's only a little spot, but I have to repaint it. Thanks, Larry. Oh, yeah, you didn't see what I saw. It's Abrego Garcia being walked to the. Again, people know the system is not policing the world. It tends to be playing a game. So when you make this noise about Abrego Garcia, they're like, well, I might be anti-immigrant or all that, or not pro-immigrant, but this idea where he's El Mencho isn't really true, right? I think that's that one. There it is. But the thing about ICE and that kind of work right now, it's kind of sucky because again, they don't agree with everything you're doing, but they can't say anything, right? Well, because they just they know some of the cases could go the other way, and there wouldn't be any issue with it, right? What's going on, Benjamin? Oh, here she is, Miss America. Oh, that's horrible.
We're done turning the other cheek. Remember, David didn't pray for Goliath. He killed them. America is a Christian nation. So those
No, it's not really. It's not. It's actually agnostic.
There is only one true God, and that is the God of Israel.
Well, now the Israelis are going to send their money. Same people pay her. Ben Gavir pays her. Ben Gavir pays her and Loomer.
And your son beheaded, unless we stop Islam once and for all. We're done turning the other cheek.
I mean, there's probably like Islamic people that think she's hilarious.
America is a Christian nation, so those terrorist Muslims can fuck off to any of the 57 Muslim nations. There is only one true God, and that is the God of Israel.
That God is everywhere. They don't know how to read the scriptures. He's not. God never said that he is only the God of Israel. God never said that. Right? Again, God speaks higher than our thoughts and our words. Pickpocket. Where's she at?
And maybe I'll get my passport. These I don't care. I keep wearing that shirt.
Pickpocket meets Marge, or Large Marge. Don't read it. I gotta get rid of your pages. I don't want to feel like seeing them. It's all scam. Right. Unfollow Church News. Right. You're not going to, you can't change that. You can't change it with getting rid of cashless bail because there is own recognizance. Somebody made it bigger than it is. They can still get out without on their own recognizance. Some judges might not let somebody go, but again, the idea is that it's dangerousness to the community and risk of flight. I'd be surprised if a judge lets somebody, again, like I said, you may actually, if you start introducing cash bail, in most cases, a judge will fashion a package to let somebody go that he normally wouldn't, or she would normally wouldn't. I don't see it affecting anything else, unless you got an asshole judge and they'll just detain people. But it doesn't mean, cashless bail doesn't mean you get released automatically with no, I think that's what the president thinks. You don't just get released. Right. They don't even know how to talk to him right. They're just ignorant. They're all ignorant anyway. Everybody around Trump's ignorant. Stay peaceful, praise